To celebrate the release of Fantastic Beasts 3, The Secrets of Dumbledore. What are his secrets? He'll never tell. Or maybe he does tell. I haven't actually seen the film yet. But to celebrate The Secrets of Dumbledore, I rewatched The Crimes of Grindelwald. What are Grindelwald's crimes? Killing a baby. Bad, Grindelwald. Bad. Don't kill no babies. That's bad and evil and mean. What are his other crimes? Trying to stop the Muggles from starting World War II. Bad, Grindelwald. Don't do bad. Wait, what the fuck? But do you know what the true crime is? The fact that I didn't hate this movie. Yep, that's right. I said it. All my credibility has gone right out the window. I know. I'm sorry. It's not a great movie. Let's just straight out of the gate. It's not like a great movie. Is it as good as any of the Harry Potter movies? No, absolutely not. No. Those movies are spectacular, amazing. It's a miracle all 8 of them are as good as they are, yet alone kind of, masterpieces. Fantastic Beasts 1, a really great fun film. Is this as good as that one? No. But I don't know. The only thing I see online and from anyone I've talked to is just, this is the worst movie ever made. I can't believe this. They've ruined the franchise forever. They've destroyed my love for Harry Potter. Harry Potter who? Harry Potter what? I don't care. I hate everything Harry Potter now. All the magic was gone. Well, I mean, I can see issues and problems with the film. There are a few kind of glaring moments early on that kind of go, they reek of that kind of, we've got to make a sequel and everyone's got to be involved and, everyone's arcs were beautifully and nicely wrapped up in the first movie. And so yes, I will admit there is definitely some moments, especially early on, that just kind of reek of being like that retcon feeling and that just idea of like, we've got to get everyone back in this movie and everything's got to, at least kind of superfluous, kind of very fake and flimsy kind of reasons to get everyone back into the movie and back into the heat and the meat of it all. Kind of feels like maybe they should have had a Fantastic Beast and went to find the movie with Newt Scamander doing his Pokemon running about. He's like, the monster's going to get back in my case. And he's got the suitcase and he puts them all back in the case and then that movie is done. And that one could just be like a short, fun, 90-minute film and, we just package that away and it's just a spin-off single movie. And then have your 3 movies that are like The Wizarding World, War, Grindelwald, Dumbledore, all those kind of things, and they could have had that. And then you wouldn't have to kind of shoehorn in Newt Scamander and Jacob, all these characters that don't really feel like they fit. But, that being said, I think there's a lot to kind of like in this movie. So Newt Scamander is thrown back into the Fantastic Beast world of, maybe it should be called the Wizarding World War movies. Fantastic Beast seems like a weird kind of title to put around these films, but we're doing it anyway. And he gets thrust back into this universe. Hey Newt, remember that time that you saved all of New York? Maybe all of the wizarding community in the whole world? Remember when you saved all of us when your big Thunderbird did a big magic spell and a big rain dance and it rained down memory juice on everybody and all the Muggles forgot that they were wizards and you saved the whole wizarding world. Well, for punishment, for some reason you're being punished. For punishment of this, you've got to join the Aura department. This is a really weird setup and kind of one of the weaker elements of the whole film where they're just like, you've got to go do this thing. Find Credence. You've got to be an Aura now because of all that awesome stuff you did. We're punishing you for it. And I guess it could be kind of like a look at like, governments, they don't understand things. Bureaucracy. It's always muddled and the bureaucracy, it's all corrupt or something or other. But it just doesn't really work. 2 aspects of this start scene that I kind of do enjoy though is the introduction of his brother. Their chemistry feels really real. The way that he's kind of really, they're really kind of estranged. But, they're still like, they're not like hate each other because they're siblings, but there's still that kind of awkward estrangement of just like that kind of like resentment kind of simmering underneath. And also the introduction of this menacing guy who literally comes out from the pillars of darkness and he walks out behind these pillars and he's like, so I will do the evil deed now then, shall I? And he's like just this evil menacing Terminator style henchman that kind of is just there. And Newt Scamander's like, no, not this piece of shit guy. I don't like him. And it's just like, we get the understanding of who this guy is from how Newt Scamander sees him, what he thinks of him. If Newt Scamander knows of this guy must be serious bad news to like, carry so much weight that someone like Newt would know him. And then to have the whole council kind of be like, Yeah, okay, I guess we'll go with this guy. Do we really have to go with this guy? Do we really have to go with this guy? Okay, yeah, no, you're the right guy, Mr. Piece of Shit Harry Potter Terminator Man. Yeah, okay. And I feel like that kind of sets up the character really nicely. It's kind of fun to have a character where we're like, wait, well, who the hell is this guy? What's this guy's deal? And we don't really get any kind of inclination of it throughout the film. There's a little hint later when he's speaking with Grindelwald, and you find out Grindelwald's doing the thing he did in the first Fantastic Beasts movie. He was like, meet me in an alleyway, we'll be lit in silhouettes, and I'll do a secret message to you, and I'll twist your mind with my words of spooky evilness. And, we have a great little scene there, which kind of hints the fact that he's just pure evil, and not just kind of bureaucrat evil. But overall, I think that's a really fun, interesting character. I like all of his scenes. The scene that brings back Jacob and Queenie is quite an interesting and quite disturbing scene. And I think this has probably kind of raised a lot of issues with a lot of people, but I think it's kind of like a really interesting and kind of bold choice to make, because in the first movie, Jacob and Queenie were kind of the most fun, romantic, kind of cutesy aspect of that film. They were really lighthearted, they were really charming, beautiful characters, and they formed like a little romance. And then it was kind of broken and torn apart by circumstance due to Jacob having to have his memories all wiped. And then at the end, he looks at her in his bakery of pastries of magical creatures, but he doesn't know they're magical creatures, they're pastries. And he looks at her and he smiles, and it's like, hey, is there maybe some kind of memory seeping back in? Who knows? End of film. Perfect arc. Chuck it away as done arcs, complete arcs forever. But, second movie, they've got to be back. You can't have the movie without Jacob. He was the standout performance of the first one. So bring him back. And how do you bring him back? Well, the memories, it's all come back to him. And the only part of this that I really don't like is that he's like, it's all bad memories, you said. All the magical, the rain's bad memories. That is not at all how it was presented in the first film. It's presented that just all memories being wiped. Like, if it's only bad memories, how many people, how many muggles in this whole of New York thought that seeing all this magic was like a good memory? Being like, oh, look at this cool magic. Like all these little kids being like, Mum, look at all this cool magic. Or even adults just being like, that's crazy cool. Magic and stuff. That's crazy. That's cool. And they don't know the destruction and the drama and all this stuff. They just see it as cool and not bad. They would all still remember. So it wouldn't have the effect that it had. So this just feels like a really weird retcon, just being like, it's all bad memories. Oh, she filled me in on a couple of bad memories. But it was all good memories for me because I'm Jacob, the funnest guy in the world. It just all feels really, really weird. You could have just done, I don't know, just been like, oh, my love for Queenie. It just broke through the barriers of magic because I'm just so awesome. I don't know how you do it, but it just kind of feels a bit like, if you knew you were going to have him back, maybe he just doesn't have the memory wipe at the end of the first one. I don't know, it just feels a bit complicated and a bit messy and a bit just like, oh, this doesn't work. But what I really do love is, okay, you've got the characters back, let's forget all that terrible stuff. You've got the characters back, and they both love each other, but, like in the first film, there's all this repression and being like, you can't be who you want to be, you can't love who you want to love. And Queenie wants to marry Jacob, a muggle, but she can't. The laws of the times and all the awful backward thinking, they're like, you can't do that, you can't do that. And obviously, she's in the right to be like, that's bullshit, and that is bullshit. Let her marry whoever she wants, Jacob's awesome! So she puts a brain magical spell, an enchantment over him, because he's clearly like, oh, I don't want you to get in trouble or die or be put in prison or anything like that if someone finds out you've married me. So he's thinking in the right, but he's also like, I can just understand how it's so complicated and a messy issue. And then I love the fact that she's kind of using magic in this really disturbing, horrific way to enchant him to like be okay with them being married. And she's kind of overstepping with her magic, overusing and abusing her power with magic. And she knows, like in the deepest of her heart, she would know that that's the wrong thing to do. But she's kind of so overwhelmed with her emotions and so overwhelmed with the fact that she knows she's right and how bullshit it is she can't, fall in love and marry this person. She does this magical spell, and like seeing Newt Scamander's face, Eddie Redmayne's whole acting thing there, and he's just like, hey, you've enchanted him, that's not good. Hey, if he's all cool with the marriage thing, I'll just take that spell off, and then she's getting in front of him and like, no, and then like seeing it all wash off, and he's just like, where am I? Like, what the hell is going on? And then he's like talking with Queenie, and Queenie's talking back, and there's this really like strange relationship, and the way they kind of twist this like really fun, goofy, light-hearted romance in the first movie to now in the second one, it's torn, it's fractured, it's broken, it's really strained. And I just find that a really bold move to do, and a surprising choice. And I love the arc of Queenie, of her just being like, kind of, disenfranchised with the whole idea of everything, and she's being like disillusioned by it all, and being like, no, I don't like anything. I don't like anything. And then the way that Grindelwald's words, even though I don't think there's a scene where he speaks and does a big speechy that makes me go, oh wow, gee, he's really good at speaking. I don't agree with him, but I can see how she does. There's like little glimmers of it, and I think that's one of the biggest weaknesses, is that he doesn't get a big, great moment and a great monologue that makes you go, oh, I don't agree with him, but oh, I'm close to agreeing with him, because I think that's what the film's kind of lacking. But overall, the idea of Queenie's kind of descent into evil, and at the end of the movie, like kind of replaying this thing at the start where he's like, this is crazy, you're... And she's like, because she can read minds and stuff, she's like, you said crazy. He's like, I didn't say it. She's like, you thought it. He's like, no. And then to bring that back at the end, where he's just like spits it in her face, like, you're crazy. How could you go with Grindelwald? He's clearly evil. He just killed a bunch of people after doing a big speech about not killing anybody. He's crazy. He's evil. How could you go with him? And she's like, don't you call me crazy. And I just think that's such a fascinating, crazy, interesting arc to take these characters from the first movie. It's just such a departure from them. And I can kind of see why people might be annoyed by that, but I think it's really fascinating. And it's kind of shows to the point of where people are at this time in the wizarding world, and how kind of disillusioned they are with all these backwards rules and all these things, and how someone can, you know, with some sexy suave words of convincing, kind of trick people to be like, hey, you know, I might be doing some crazy things that people are calling evil here or there. All I want is for us to have the rights we deserve. And they do deserve those rights. Queenie is totally in her right to like want to get married to Jacob. And the idea that she's so like gung-ho on getting that right to marry him, that then she breaks their relationship up probably forever. I don't know, really fascinating and interesting. And I think one of the highlights of the whole film, it really, really works for me. It's an utterly devastating turn and absolutely harrowing and heartbreaking. But then we still kind of get a whole bunch of Jacob having movie one, Jacob just running about being like, oh, magic's crazy. So we kind of get to have that side of it as well, which is really fun. He is once again an absolute delight. Tina, once again, isn't my favorite character in the movie, but by the end of the movie, I'm kind of, once again, like the first time, surprised by how much I'm enjoying her and Newt Scamander's kind of relationship and how it kind of progresses. The one thing that I do find really frustrating, and this is one of those crimes of Grindelwald, the crime is that I didn't hate the film, in brackets, but it's still not a good movie, it's kind of bad still. You know, it's kind of annoying that their whole kind of romantic entanglement issue in this film and being like, oh, we're all torn apart because of a thing that could have just been solved if there wasn't like a typo in a magazine. Like, she reads a magazine and she's like, oh no, Newt Scamander's marrying Zoe Kravitz, Lita Lestrange, the sexiest woman who's ever lived. Like, how dare he? But actually, Lita Lestrange is marrying his brother, and it just happens that in that photo, they're kind of hugging, even though I don't know why that's the photo if the other one's getting married. It just seems like a weird photo to have picked. But yeah, I don't know, that whole thing is just so like, okay, so the whole kind of estrangement and difficulty with their relationship and the tension there is all because of a typo in a magazine. That feels really flimsy, really half-baked and just terrible, like a silly, dumb little soap opera kind of plot. Doesn't work for me at all. And then it all kind of ties up at the end when he's like, no, actually, no, you shouldn't be happy for me because I'm not happy either. And it's all a big typo. It's just a big typo. Have it actually be related to the story and the plot of Grindelwald and all his crimes. And, you know, just kind of make it feel like it's justified rather than being like, oh, a magazine did a typo. What a good story plot. I'm the greatest writer that ever lived. So another thing that I didn't love was that we've got a snake lady who's like, I'm a fantastic beast, but a tragic, just broken one as well, is Nagini. Nagini, Voldemort's evil, monstrous snake sidekick throughout all his, you know, adventures in Harry Potter. Turns out she's just like some tragic lady who gets turned into a snake, and eventually over time she's going to transform into a snake and never transform back. And in this film, she's very tragic. She doesn't really get much lines or dialogue or anything. She's kind of just there so Ezra Miller can be like, lines of dialogue, other character, and you know, have someone to talk to rather than, I guess, us having to infer everything he's thinking as he goes on the hunt for who's his family or whatever. And this really feels like probably the weakest element of the whole movie. Just being like, why make Nagini this tragic, just broken person who's tragically going to turn into Nagini, the snake? Like, in the end, when Neville is like, with a big sword, he's like, "Wah!" and he chops Nagini's head off, and everyone's like, yeah, die, Snake, you piece of shit, you bitch, I hate you, Snake, F you, Snake, I'm so happy you're dead. Now it's like, wow, you've really ruined that fist bump moment. That's more of like a, Neville, if you knew what you were doing, you'd feel pretty bad. Maybe you could have reformed the Snake. Maybe he was only doing it because of Voldemort. Oh yeah, you beheaded this poor lady who's now a snake forever. Yay, Neville, yay! So yeah, ruined that moment, kind of retroactively. Really despicable, terrible writing. Just really, like the worst retcon you could ever imagine. Hate that so much. And she's nothing, like a nothing character in the movie. She's just there as like a soundboard for Ezra Miller so he has someone to talk to. So it doesn't work at all. I love the idea that you have a character like that is turning into a creature and, is tragically going to stay that creature. That's classic Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. And sometimes the beast isn't just a fun little Pokemon beast, but they're a tragic, obscure little beast. That totally could have worked for this film and the franchise. But making Nagini terrible. So, in a lot of ways, most of our main characters don't really have kind of arcs and, kind of a reason to be in this movie, which is definitely a weak element of the film, even though I just love seeing them all back. And I'm like, it's a new Scamander, he's running about and he's like, and he's got a big, instead of a big rhino, there's a big lion, big-tailed creature, gangly lion thing, and it's all running about Paris, and he's doing a thing, and he's got to get some creatures back into his suitcase, and doing all his classic Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find them mostly in my suitcase kind of, activities. The real character that kind of gets an arc and a story this movie is Lita Lestrange, played by Zoe Kravitz, and she is awesome. I really, really, really like her character in this movie. I think it is fascinating and terrifying and heartbreaking and devastating. Like, she goes through so much in this film, like starting off with kind of a bit of a generic soap opera plot where she's like, hey, why don't you come to dinner, person who I clearly had a crush on in high school, but now I'm, dating or married to your brother. That's the most soap opera-y thing you can think of. Just feels a bit like, sure. What, she only met 2 men in her life? Like, she just has something for that Scamander blood. Like, sure, whatever. I'll get over it. It's a movie. You want to have everyone relate to everyone and have emotion connection to everyone. Sure. Whatever. Her Hogwarts flashbacks. I love them. And not just to be like, when we're panning over the hillside and it's like, dun, 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 Hogwarts. And you just see Hogwarts again and I'm just like, Oh, that sweet, comforting, warm feeling. Like just a big warm hug from a big pillow doona thingy. Something magic. I don't know. It's just a really warm, heartwarming feeling of just being back at Hogwarts. Yes, I could totally see how someone could be like, this is all just, you're just trying to cash in on that Harry Potterness of it all. And one aspect of the first film I loved was that it didn't feel like it was cashing in on all that Harry Potterness. But, hey, they're going to make 5 of these, and at some point they're going to have to do some kind of Harry Potterness, and this one has Dumbledore in it, so it kind of makes sense. And you're going to have flashbacks to her and Newt at school. Well, that school was Hogwarts, so you just got to show that. Like, I don't know, I think it totally works for me. I really liked seeing all of that Hogwarts stuff. It wasn't just that heartwarming, big pillow of warmth, hugging of, Hogwarts, I love Hogwarts, I love seeing new Hogwarts. It was just really great. It really kind of informed the characters in a really interesting way, and it kind of delved into their psyches in a really kind of terrifying way. Like, there's no better way to explain or to foreshadow like a horrific moment in someone's life than to be like, there's the boggart, your worst nightmare is gonna come out, and then Lita Lestrange is like, all right, I'm ready, boggart, what you got for me? And then the boggart opens, and it's just like this haunting, like everything goes blue and dark and menacing, and a haunting thing of all this cloth just floating through the air. It's just like, what the hell is going on? And I love seeing Jude Law's face in this moment. He's just like, what the hell? This is way more disturbing than everyone's usual things. It's usually just a big spider or Professor Snape or whatever, and just seeing that moment, it's like, okay, what the hell is that? And then the payoff later totally works, like super satisfying. But I just love seeing her, like, she's getting bullied and teased. She does a magical spell so someone loses their mouth, like they're Neo from the first Matrix movie. Utterly terrifying. I love that. I love her going to see Newt, and she's like, why aren't you going back for the summer holidays or whatever? Well, the winter holidays, I guess, because their timelines are different. It's different here in Australia. And I just love that even as a kid, he's got like 100 different beasts. They're all fantastic magical beasts, and they're all everywhere. And just their relationships, the casting for both of them, especially Newt as a kid, really, really good. Just love seeing all those interactions. Feels like it really fleshes them out in a really fun, interesting way. And then cutting out of the flashback, and Zoe Kravitz is like, what the hell, Jude Law, Mrs. Professor Dumbledore? Like, you hated me. And he's like, I didn't hate you. I didn't say that at all. And you kind of get this real intense sense of like, she remembers high school in a certain way, and she's reflecting and, you know, fighting back against it and being like, everyone hated me. Everyone hated school because I was a brat. I was this and that. And you get this like intense self-loathing coming from her. And it's like, where is this coming from? Why is she like this? And all kind of coming up to that intense reveal towards the end. Dumbledore is great as well. Jude Law is great as Dumbledore, and his kind of kind, sincere kind of talking to Lita Lestrange in this moment is a really, really great moment that kind of shines so much light onto these two characters. But I'll get to Dumbledore in a second. So Lita Lestrange's big reveal at the end where they all get into the graveyard and they're all like, here's the big thingy. I really like having this big kind of soap opera-y kind of reveal of parentage and history and all these things and twists and turns. It kind of makes me think like it's a soap opera-y Game of Thrones kind of thing where it's like, ooh, the lineage, the parentage, everyone's family ties, it's all very important. And I kind of just like the big kind of over-the-top-ness of it all. And then with the whole final reveal that Lita Lestrange, because she just couldn't handle, after all this traumatic stuff has happened with backstory and all this kind of stuff, just the moment of her being like, I just couldn't handle this stupid little baby crying. It was just crying and crying and crying. And just for 5 seconds, I just wanted this baby to shut the goddamn up. I just wanted to shut the bloody hell up. And so I switched the babies. It was just going to be for 5 minutes just to switch the babies. And then the ship starts crashing and falling down and everything starts going too crazy. And before she kind of, you know, she's a little kid, before she realizes what's happening and she can fix anything, that baby is taken off onto another boat and crashes and dies. Just so traumatic, so horrifically intense, such a crazy reveal, just so devastating. All this kind of self-loathing from earlier in the film with all the flashbacks at Hogwarts and like the characters' perspective and just how they're feeling throughout the film. Everything just kind of clicks into place as you suddenly realize this horrific, traumatizing kind of life-altering decision she made that, you know, was an accident. She didn't kill the baby, but she feels like she may as well have killed the baby, Grindelwald style. And it's just so traumatic. It's so devastating. I just think it was such a powerful moment. It's so intense. And I think it kind of brings back into that Fantastic Beasts. And why is Newt Scamander in these Fantastic Beasts? But they should be called Wizarding War movies. It's like at one point he's like, it's not your fault, Lita. You didn't mean to kill the baby. You didn't mean for any of this. It's not your fault. And she's like, there was never a monster you couldn't love, Newt Scamander. And it's just like, oh, just, I don't know. I felt so thematically rich at that moment, just to be this damaged person who's made this horrific decision. And it just, I don't know, it just crushed me. I think it's a great reveal. It's a great little moment. And then her character is so kind of like self-sabotage and destructive at this point that she's got her two lovers, her two Scamander boys, and they're both sitting there and everyone's waving wands against the big blue flaming fires of Grindelwald at the end, and it's all flaming blue stuff, and she's like fighting it, and it's kind of a self-sacrifice, kind of like a suicide kind of, I'll try and kill him, but it feels almost half-baked, like she doesn't want it, like she's trying to kill him, and best case scenario, Grindelwald dies, but it almost feels like she's asking to like be punished for it as well, which is really devastating and like intense. But overall, I just think it was a really satisfying arc, really great character, and in a lot of ways, this movie is her movie. Like, we get a tiny glimpse and a hint of her in the first movie, and in this movie, it really feels like she's completely rounded out. So, this film does the big, bold, crazy decision to be like, Dumbledore's gonna be in it. He's gonna be a mainstay of this series now. He's not just gonna appear at the end when him and Grindelwald have the greatest wizard fight that's ever been, wizard fight of all time. He's just gonna be a main character in it. Except in this film, he's kind of like a side character where he's not in it enough to be like, you know, very prevalent, but he's in it enough to be like, well, you cast Dumbledore. And who'd they cast? Jude Law. And he is amazing. Amazing casting for Dumbledore. All of his scenes are really, really great. I think the only thing that doesn't work is his introduction, where he starts and Newt's like, hey, I suddenly realized the reason you made me to go to New York with the big flying bird and all this stuff was because other things, and you knew I was gonna meet the Obscurest and all this other stuff with Credence and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, what? That is such a retcon. That is not why you were there. That doesn't make any sense. You're meeting the Obscurious, and that whole subplot, and them all combining two subplots together into one big finale, that was all happenstance. That had nothing to do with Dumbledore. Him wanting to go there at that exact time. You had no idea that they were both going to converge and meet up in that way. It makes no sense. But then in this film, they're like, Dumbledore, he just wants you to be near Credence. Because Credence, there's a whole magical thing about Credence. Also, yeah, another big issue I have with this film is like in the first film, Credence essentially explodes and dies. And Grindelwald's all like, no, you killed my weapon of mass destruction. Boy, child, thingy, how dare you? And in this film, they're like, he survived somehow. Whoopity-boo. And it's like, okay, sure, he survived. You can do that. That's fine. Magic. Whatever. But then suddenly being like, who is Credence? Who is Credence? Ooh, there's some magical lineage. Oh, the lineage is very important. And it does feel like they're going for that season 1 Thrones kind of thing where they're like, ooh, the lineage of everyone is very important. Who is Joffrey's real father? But instead of that being really entertaining and fun and still a bit soap opera-y, but just amazing, this is just kind of that soap opera thing, but not amazing. We're like, who's the lineage? Oh, there's a prophecy. Oh, there's this. Oh, there's that. And it's like, where did any of this come from? Why does Credence suddenly care about like who his family is, who his mum is? Suddenly Credence, like after exploding and being obscure, he's like, I want to find out who my mum is. That's all I've ever wanted to find out. And that's his whole arc for the whole movie. And it's kind of like, sure, okay, whatever. But yeah, Dumbledore, he's great. He's really, really great. The highlight for me is when he's doing his teaching thing and he's like, Rule 1, Rule 2, what was Rule 3 you forgot? The fact you forgot to pay attention to Rule 1 and 2, lessons, teaching, and everyone's like, oh, Dumbledore, we love you. And when all the ministry come in, they're all like, everyone get out of this room, we gotta speak to Dumbledore. And all the kids are just like, and they just look at Dumbledore waiting for him to excuse them out of the room. I'm like, respect. Imagine going to a school and having that much respect for your teacher. Imagine a teacher being that awesome, you'd have that kind of respect for him. I could just only dream. I can only imagine my wildest fantasies, like reading a Harry Potter book, that someone could be that amazing. And I just love it. And then that one kid coming up and be like, he's the best teacher we have. Yeah, the other little moment of looking, that kind of gave it to us. You're overstepping your bounds writing right now. Just get out of here. But overall, really, really fun. Just Jude Law in that whole scene, and just the whole movie, he's really, really fun. And then right at the end of the movie, Lucius Commander's like, I've got the blood pact thing. It's like an unbreakable vow, but this is probably a almost unbreakable vow, but now it can be slightly breakable vow, because they've obviously got to do their big magical duel. It's the most magical duel of all time. And so obviously they have to fight. But they can't fight straight away because then there'd be no 5 films. So there's a little vase they'll have to destroy in the 3rd movie. So with him and, not Johnny Depp anymore, Mads Mikkelsen. So him and Mads Mikkelsen will both be like, Expelliarmus! You know, or whatever. So this film definitely goes all out compared to the first one particularly, where it's like, remember Harry Potter? Oh, you loved Harry Potter. Here's all the Harry Potter things. You know, we've got a lot more. We've got the Hogwarts, we've got the Dumbledore, but kind of the most egregious, but the one that I really couldn't care less about and kind of enjoyed to see was Nicholas Flamel, the 17,100 billion-year-old man, Nicholas Flamel. I just found him really fun. It's kind of a bit silly that at the end he's like, I've been called back into action after 1,700 billion years. He's like, everyone get your wands together, stick them in the ground and let's do a big magic thing. You know, it's just a bit silly, but also whatever. I don't know. I had a bit of fun with it. And if Dumbledore is a main character in this series now and he has friends who's like, here's the card, go see my friend. Well, one of his friends was Nicholas Flamel, so why not make it him? That's a bit of fun. Somehow I've got 350 minutes of God into this review without talking about Johnny Depp, Mr. Grindelwald himself, and he is fine. There's too much going on with just the visual look of the character, and he starts off where he's like, ooh, the crimes of Grindelwald, I'm going to kill babies and do all this stuff. You know, there's that action scene right at the start of the movie where they're taking him horse and carriage, flying horse and carriage to take him from one prison to the next prison. You don't have a port key, you don't have flu powder, you don't just have that teleporty thing I've forgotten the name of where you just go and you teleport somewhere else straight away? No, it's a horse and carriage situation? Sure, fine. It's a bit of a fun action sequence. He kills all the people, he brings back his, you know, friend, then the switcheroo thingy, and then he's like, oh, I've got a Fantastic Beast that's friends with me. But just to make sure everyone's clear that I don't like Fantastic Beasts, he kills him! And he's like, see, I'm evil, I don't like Fantastic Beasts in this Fantastic Beast franchise. Overall, I don't find him in this movie so bad that it's just like, oh, I'm gonna hate on every second of his performance. He he isn't as charming and suave and sexy as I think Colin Farrell could have done. I think there's something about the character that needs to just be like overwhelmingly charismatic and charming and sexy, and just this way he kind of lures you in. Like there's kind of some lip service early on where they're like, he's just so charming and sexy and cool, and he's just got this way about words. We had to cut out his tongue, and we had to switch all his guards all the time. And like, you know, you can say that, but you then have to show it. Like, you know, show, don't tell. Don't tell and then not show. Like, at least if you're going to tell, then show. And I really wish there'd been a scene where he kind of got a moment where he really kind of explains his kind of side of things. Because I think there is a way, you know, with Queenie's character as well. Like, you know, with her and with the way people kind of perceive him, there is a way for him to explain stuff where you're like, oh, I don't agree with him, but I almost do. And I think that would be the most interesting and exciting place to take this character, to make us really question which side we're on. And then obviously it gets really, really, really muddled where he has the big skull bong, and he's like, ooh, my big skull bong of future things that are going to happen. He blows a big smoke of future things that are going to happen. And we see World War II, and we see the Hiroshima bomb, and all this horrific stuff. And everyone's like, oh no, not another World War. Oh, and he's like, this is what the humans are going to do. We don't want this. Which is bad. It's bad and dumb, and I just don't want to talk about it. And so, overall, I give this rating of this film a big old Expelliarm. Yes! Or maybe a big old Expelliarm. No. It's mixed for me. So I guess it's more of an Expelliarm mixed review rating. Yes and no. No and yes, it's mixed. Thanks for watching, guys. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and comment below. I'd love to know what everyone thinks of Fantastic Beasts 2, The Crimes of Grindelwald. What are his crimes? They're bad things, or they're not so bad. It depends on who you ask.